Welcome to At the Park. Today we're at the Creation Museum here in northern Kentucky, right outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is the Welcome Center we'll be going in today. Here today with me is Mark Lloyd. Mark is the co-founder of Answers in Genesis, along with Ken Ham. So Mark has agreed to sit down with us and talk to us about this wonderful museum. It's a beautiful place. How long has the museum been here?
Well, we are sitting right now in the Creation Museum, which is a part of the Answers in Genesis ministry. We opened this high-tech museum in 2007. The Ark Encounter with the full-size Noah's Ark, which is down the interstate, we opened that in 2016.
Okay, wow. So you've been here a little bit of time. Why Kentucky? We're in the northern part of Kentucky here. It just seems like it's the heartland of America, but not near any major city. Cincinnati.
Heartland is a good word for that. And the reason we're here, and there were three of us who started the ministry. We were living in San Diego, California. That's not a crossroads of America, but where we are here, Cincinnati is not too far from here, and we've got some major interstates going through this region. So we are a suburb of Cincinnati. And what led us to move here is that almost 2/3 of Americans can drive here in one day. And there's no other city like that in America. Now, Indianapolis kind of lays claim to that, Nashville. But if you do a 600-mile radius around where we are now, 190 million Americans live within that circle and could theoretically drive here in one day.
So it's families driving.
It's a destination location. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to get to. The Cincinnati airport is actually in Kentucky, LT, and it's just three exits down. Well, it's just three exits down the road. So for the people who fly in, we get a lot of international visitors.
I noticed that today.
They fly into Cincinnati, and we're just a 10-minute drive to the Creation Museum. For the people who fly in, maybe a 30-minute drive to the Ark Encounter. The
museum is owned by the ministry, and the ministry does have other components besides the two museums.
Yes, and the Creation Museum is a walk through history according to the Bible. All 66 books are covered here, but we focus.
I had noticed that without noticing that it is they are kind of going through the Bible as well, not just through the theology.
And we spend a lot of time on the life of Christ because we're an evangelistic museum. Although we do concentrate on the first 11 chapters of Genesis, creation, the flood, as well as the Tower of Babel, because the Bible is most under attack right there in the book of Genesis. So many of the exhibits here, and we have some world-class exhibits.
There's some really great exhibits.
Well, thank you. And even the people who don't care for our viewpoint even admit.
I will tell you, my background is actually museum studies and exhibit design, so I really appreciated seeing some of the exhibit design. Well,
thank you. In fact, our detractors, the people who would call themselves evolutionists, they'll come here and admit this is maybe the best looking museum they've seen anywhere in the world.
I think there's a lot to be said in for conveying one's message. If you can convey it in a way that people can approach it, understand it, and take it in. Exhibits that are too wooden or not approachable don't convey that interpretation.
Oh yes, this is not a stuffy, boring science museum. That's why we have some of the high-tech things here.
There's a lot of high-tech stuff.
Animatronic dinosaurs that move realistically, a 4D theater, planetarium. But we do have those exhibits like the Allosaur downstairs. It's a world-class dinosaur fossil.
That fossil is impressive in its case.
Any science museum in the world would covet what we have here.
I think I read it was like one of the 7 best Allosaurus skeletons.
In fact, the skull might be the best preserved. It's about 97% complete.
Wow.
And that's the crown jewel of any dinosaur skeleton is how well preserved is the skull.
So you have some pretty amazing exhibits, but there's an admission fee, but that probably doesn't cover your costs. How are y'all funded? Like, where do you get your funding and your backing?
Well, we're blessed here that admission fees actually do cover the running costs.
Wow, that's in a museum world that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we don't get any federal donations or state,
no, of course not, yeah.
State grants. But we get over 500,000 people here to the museum every year.
Okay.
At the Ark Encounter, we get over 1 million. And so
wow. I
those...
wouldn't have thought such a difference, but...
Well, the Ark is more of interest to those people who would not call themselves Christians.
Okay.
They're coming out of curiosity.
Okay.
And it's a wow experience.
The pictures just alone seem like it's like... I didn't realize till probably a week ago that the Ark Encounter, the Ark itself is the museum. Like, it's not just something in the parking lot, you go to another building. The Ark, you go up and into the Ark.
Yes, and so with the Ark Encounter, we concentrate on a few chapters of the book of Genesis, whereas the Creation Museum we're in right now is a sweeping chronicle of world history from Genesis through to Revelation. But if you go to the Ark Encounter, it's more than just the ship.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a virtual reality experience that recreates what it may have looked like at the time of Noah. A very nice zoo, an answer center, a virtual, well, I said the virtual reality experience, zip lines. It's an all-day experience at the Ark Encounter. And we're careful to say it's not an amusement park. I know you visit amusement parks and video there.
Well, yeah, because our channel, we do museums, amusement parks, so family travel. So is what we're trying to focus on. And this museum seems to have a lot of families with families with adolescent to teenage kids. It seems to be a little bit of focus here because, like, you mentioned at the Ark Museum that they have the zip line, but here you seem to also have some kind of similar outdoor experience as well.
Yes, both attractions, both the Ark and the museum, have very nice gardens and zoos.
Yeah,
because young people,
right.
children love zoos. In fact, we've opened a new part of our zoo just today.
It's expanding. It looks like you're going to add some more exhibits.
So back to your question then, if we want to expand the museum or the Ark, then we go to our donors. Because the ticket admission covers the cost of running both of these, what people are calling world-class attractions.
Right.
And when you've got hundreds and hundreds of salaries to pay, you have to charge some kind of admission. And so we keep our admission prices to the point where that keeps us operating. If we want to expand, then we go to our donors.
Okay, that seems like actually a really good model as far as museums go. Because a lot of museums work really too heavily on trying to keep the doors open just with donors. And unfortunately, I think education and supporting that really does cost more money than people realize.
It does.
So when you're paying, $100, $80 a day to go to some place like Busch Gardens or Disney World, and it makes sense that for a museum that has just as much technology, just as much staff as a small amusement park, you need to be charging amusement prices to do that. People are going to the Ark are doing it out of curiosity. People who are coming here are probably more interested in this topic.
Yeah, they're more likely to be Christians who visit here. At the Ark Encounter, about a third of our guests would not call themselves born again, going to church people. They're out of curiosity. That's why we present the gospel throughout the Ark Encounter to reach those people. Now, we do have a lot of non-Christians who come here, and they have probably been to a public school. They've been to museums and been watching programs on TV that give an evolutionary worldview. We want them to come here and think differently. Look at the evidence through different lenses, glasses, if you will, that we look at the world with different glasses, different interpretation of the evidence. For example, with dinosaurs. We don't. They're kind of the icon for evolutionists.
Right. And the thing is that was one thing I was really interested to see in how you presented the topics that have typically seemed to fall in the realm of Christianity didn't want to approach certain topics because they didn't know how to answer those questions.
Yes.
And I remember there being, growing up, you didn't talk about the things that the church necessarily couldn't answer outright. And I think one thing I noticed in the exhibit was not just the way you answered how things like dinosaurs, and like we're in the dragon gallery right now, and they talked about dragons and mythology, and how where in the Bible it really does talk about some beasts and things like that. But also though about the one gallery I found really interesting, one of my favorites I think was the gallery about people of the Bible, and especially about like King David and how King David was kind of a mythological figure in the actual archaeological record until recently, and how they found something from another king writing about him in the period, and that's really interesting to see that evidence being put forth. And I think that's bringing families here to see that and understand that, and then doing it in a way that it's not Sunday school. So this museum is not just preaching the whole time. It's entertaining.
No, we use fields like archaeology and the other sciences to confirm what the Bible teaches. And LT, we have several PhD scientists on our staff here. One, for example, has his PhD from Harvard in science. So there's a lot of brain power behind the exhibits and the videos that you see here. But we look at the world very differently than the evolutionists. We look at it through biblical lenses, and praise God, just last month we heard of at least over 2,000 people who came to the Ark Encounter who decided to become Christians after going through. So that's really what we want to do, is we want to equip Christians to have answers to defend their faith when it comes to things like dinosaurs. Right. But for the non-Christians who come here, we answer their questions, but then we also present the gospel. We don't hide that at all.
No. So what are the plans, though? You just talked about going into your donors and doing expansions. Are there plans for other things in the works?
Yeah, we have about a 15-year plan.
Oh, wow.
When you go to the Ark Encounter, even though it's an all-day attraction right now, people are typically there 6 to 7 hours, some stay even longer.
Wow.
But when you go there, you don't even see 40% of what's planned over the next few years. Here at the Creation Museum, we're going to be expanding. The zoo is
I knew it was up earlier, yeah.
And we're going to be moving our headquarters, which is a part of the museum building, next year, which will free up a lot of space here where we can expand the Creation
Museum. There's a lot of back of house that you're going to be moving off-site.
Yes.
So I know you do have another off-site facility for your exhibit fabrication, and then so you've got multiple areas that you can. So this is how large is the operation, like staff-wise, I should say?
Well, in the summertime, where we have our peak hiring, because that's when we have the most visitors, we're at about 1,500 staff during the summer. Now, that's not just...
That's more than I expected.
It's not a small operation, but we have many things going on here. To answer one of your previous questions, we are more than just attractions. We have a very robust website with social media. We produce a magazine called Answers. We produce a radio program, and we have a large warehouse just down the road here where we distribute curricula. We print, I don't know how many millions of curricula have flown out of the buildings here. So we're a book producer, video producer. We have Answers TV, which is a live streaming.
So Answers in Genesis is based here as well.
Correct. And under Answers in Genesis is this museum, the Ark Encounter, the curricula, the streaming service, the radio program, the magazine. There's much that explains why we have 1,500.
It's a lovely campus. So how many acres is this campus, though?
We're sitting on about 75 acres. At the Ark Encounter, we have 800 acres. That's for future growth.
Wow.
But here we are, we're in the rolling hills of Kentucky. If you want 200 usable acres, typically you have to buy 800 acres, unless you want to move a lot of dirt around. You don't want to do that. So there's a lot of opportunities to grow here at the museum, as well as the Ark Encounter. Yeah, we're in what seems to be a very rural area, but so close to Cincinnati.
Right, because it kind of seems like there's a rural neighborhood just across the street.
Yes.
And you're just kind of the back road to get here, and then you're here, which is it's a big difference in.
You wouldn't guess that.
No.
That 100 yards this way is
Right.
is an interstate,
Right.
Interstate 275. But
Right.
we tried to keep our bucolic setting,
Yeah.
our pastoral setting, as much as we could.
Wow. So, so for families, we have the galleries, which I mean, you've also got the like I noticed you have the. I'm trying to remember some things I saw today. There was the animal encounters. There was an educator that was showing a snake. And do you do other animal encounters? I'm assuming.
Yes, mostly at the Ark, because that's where we have the larger zoo.
Okay.
But we have lectures every day. We have children's workshops, hands-on workshops. So it's more than just walking through a museum and watching videos and reading displays. And often we have music, mostly at the Ark, but sometimes we have music here too. People like to sit down, take a break, and enjoy some gospel music.
What kind of special events do you have throughout the year?
Well, we just finished 40 days and 40 nights of Christian music. It's the largest Christian music festival in the world.
Wow.
We bring in about 150 different musical groups. Just recently we had Casting Crowns here, if that
I've
means.
heard of them. Yeah.
Crowder was here.
Okay.
And so what's nice about that is that a lot of people will travel from this region just to hear their music, and they may not have ever toured the Ark or the museum, and so they get introduced.
So where do you host that festival?
We have a 2,500 seat auditorium near the Ark ship.
Okay.
And we do men's conferences, women's conferences, a college expo in a few weeks, where Christian colleges from all over the country come set up their booths, and we encourage young people to check out Christian colleges for their higher education.
Dining options. So you have, I think it was Noah's Cafe. And you've got and
there's Palm Plaza downstairs, and the more interesting thing is at the Ark Encounter, we have a restaurant called Mzara's. It's the second biggest restaurant in America. We can seat 1,700 people. Now you wonder, why do you need so many seats?
Yeah.
Well, LT.
Why do you have the second biggest?
Well, LT on a busy summer day on a Saturday, we could have 9,000 people on the grounds of the Ark Encounter. That's a lot of mouths to feed.
It is.
So sometimes we have to put out some extra seats, but we can accommodate 1,700. There's a restaurant in Pennsylvania that's a little bit larger.
What is that? Do we know?
It's near Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have said Ark Encounter second biggest. It's not something I would have put together as.
Well, everything about the Ark is big, right?
I guess so.
So our restaurant is big. Our auditorium with 2,500 seats
might need to rename it. Might need to rename it Texas, I guess. So bigger. Everything's
well,
bigger.
We'll stick with Mzara's, which by tradition Mzara's was Noah's wife.
Oh,
now we don't know that, but that's Jewish tradition.
So it's her kitchen.
Yes, but we're not going to. You said roadside. Texas Roadhouse?
No,
we'll stay away from that.
Okay. What are the things you hope that people take away when they come to this?
Well, for the Christians, more boldness
Okay.
in their faith, because now they have answers they may not have ever picked up in church.
Yeah.
And then we want them to have answers so they can evangelize more effectively. They'll be more bold now that they have answers to questions like, why do we have suffering, disease, death in this world? What about dinosaurs?
Right.
And then for the non-Christians, we want them to take the Bible seriously, the gospel message most of all. Those are the takeaways.
You have a favorite. I know you do. You have to have a favorite. Which is it? Ark or Creation?
Well, I was much more involved in the Creation Museum construction. And it better mirrors our ministry as a whole to show that the whole of the Bible is true. So I have a warmer place in my heart for this high-tech museum we're sitting in right now. But the Ark is just a wow experience. To see the people get off the shuttle bus and look up at this 510-foot long Ark.
I don't think the pictures do it justice, because I looked at some of the media packet you guys sent me, and like there's an overhead view of the park, and I was like, what? You couldn't get the scale, and because the picture's so far out to try to get the whole thing in the shot that you can't get the scale of how big. And you're like, wait, that's a person, and I didn't get that at first. But then you saw the cars in the parking lot and the Ark, and I was like, That's a car. That thing it's massive.
We encourage our guests to come to the Creation Museum first.
Okay.
They get the broad overview of biblical history, and they'll get some teaching on Noah's flood and Noah's Ark here in the museum.
Right.
And then on the second day, they go to the Ark and learn more about some of the most asked questions people have about the Bible relate to Noah's flood, Noah's Ark, how many animals were on board, where did all the water come from to cover the earth.
Right.
And so
I think Noah's Ark, I think, is probably one of the most sensational stories in the Bible, because it is so, it's over the top when you think about it from the outside perspective. Like, how could anything like that ever happen?
And there's so many questions that even Christians have, like how were the animals collected? The Bible says the animals came to Noah from the Lord. So questions like that. What about storage of food on board, and how did the animals, or how are they taken care of? And we have all those.
And there is a small, for those who can only do the Creation Museum, there is a small gallery that is seems like a small chunk of the Ark.
Yes.
And it answers some of those questions here at the Creation Museum. But I'd imagine there's a much more in-depth.
Oh, much more in-depth. Yeah, the Ark is 3 decks of exhibits and videos. The average person is inside that massive ship for about 2.5 to 3 hours. There's that much to do inside that ship. And then to go behind the ship and walk through the gardens and the zoo. There's a kangaroo enclosure, which is pretty fun. You can walk into an enclosure and maybe the kangaroos will come up to you. Some days they don't.
Wow.
But it's a pretty neat experience out there.
It's not often you hear about ministries having kangaroos.
Well, Ken Ham is our founder, and Ken Ham is an Australian by birth.
I guess I'd forgotten that.
So it kind of connects.
Wow. All right. Well, anything else you'd like to share about the museum?
LT, I just encourage people to find out. Maybe the best thing for them to do after watching this is to go to our website of answersingenesis.org.
Okay, and I'll definitely put that down in the comments.
I mean, they can go to arkencounter.com if they want to, but probably best landing spot is Answers in Genesis.
And then they can hit everything from out from there. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me.
I'm sorry I missed your wife and daughter. Maybe next time.
Maybe again. So thank you, Mark.
Thanks, LT.
You're welcome.
Good to be with you.